Life Audio.
Hello, and welcome to the Confessions of a Christian Alcoholic podcast. I am your host, John Seidel. This is your home for real stories, radical vulnerability, and remarkable comebacks. In the end, this podcast is a place for the desperate, the downtrodden, the destitute, and especially the drunk. But it's also a place of hope and healing. I know that firsthand because I'm the Christian who became an alcoholic, not the other way around. Today, I've found sobriety after decades of struggling. But more importantly than finding sobriety, I found Jesus. My prayer is that as I interview people just like you and just like me, along with professionals in the fields of trauma, faith, and addiction recovery, you will find the peace that is available to you through Christ on the other side of whatever you're going through and whatever addiction that might be. Because let's face it, we're all addicted to something. So welcome. Let's get radically vulnerable as we explore what it looks like to be on this journey of messy sanctification. We'll be right back after this. One of the things I never want to lose sight about this podcast is that it was really founded on one idea, and that is the power of storytelling. And so consistently what I hear from you guys is that the episodes where we tell regular stories from regular people about their struggles with addiction, alcohol, whatever, are some of the most impactful and powerful. And so today is one of those episodes, and I am so excited to get to introduce you to someone who's become a friend of mine. His name is JP Graves. And JP is a guy just like me, just like you. He is a Christian that became an alcoholic. He is someone who loves Jesus and yet struggled with this secret sin that was literally wasting away his body. He's going to tell the story of how towards the end of his most severe drinking, he literally could not swallow. The vodka and the alcohol he was drinking so much that it was literally eroding his esophagus. And I think what is important about JP's story is, and yet he was faithful to go to church. He was involved at church, right? And yet he still struggled. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about how we can continue to struggle with sins along that sanctification process. And that sanctification process is what is inherent is that we are still striving to be more like Jesus every day. So JP's story, I first heard it on another podcast with Matt Chandler, who is a pastor here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, president of the Acts 29 Church Planning Network. He's someone who's been influential in my life. I quote him extensively in my book. His book, The Overcomers, is really great. And so JP goes to his church, and Matt interviewed JP and his wife, and I just was blown away. Like, I still continue to see how important it is for me to consume stories that I can see myself in. And so I think I'm hoping that you will be able to see yourself in JP's story. Before we get to JP, just a reminder, I would be so honored if you would pick up the book Confessions of a Christian Alcoholic. A lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today with me and JP, it's just going to broach the surface of deeper ideas and concepts and principles that are fleshed out in the book. You'll also get to hear my story if you haven't heard that as well. So you can go to christianalcoholic.com, christianalcoholic.com, and get the book for 30% off plus free shipping from the publisher, or you can get it on Amazon as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to JP Graves and just soak up this story. And I pray that you can see yourself in it and that there is at least one aspect that the Lord uses to get a hold of you as you listen to his words. JP, thank you so much for joining the podcast. You know, I said in the introduction, we have a lot of, cool people and people with followings and whatnot. But one of the things that I actually, in the feedback that I've gotten, is that some of the best episodes are people who are just regular people, right?
Yeah.
Regular moms, regular dads, regular husbands, regular wives who have gone through this. And I think in so many ways, people can relate to that. And I think people will be able to relate to your story today. And so I'm really appreciative of you coming on.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for reaching out. Excited to just share my story and what the Lord's done in and through me in the past 2.5 years. So.
Which is funny because I think we both I'm at 2.5 years sober.
Yeah.
So we're very similar on this journey. You know, I was introduced to you through another podcast that I heard that you were on through a mutual friend of ours, Matt Chandler. You've been on his podcast, and I remember just listening to that story, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Right? Like, and I still, by the way, people who are listening to this, like, one of my hopes is that you'll hear JP's story and you'll be like, "I'm not alone," right? I still get that, right? So I hear JP's story, and I'm like, I'm not alone, right? Like, even down to kind of some of the timeline that we share as well. But before we get to your story, just tell people a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Yeah. So, JP Graves, I've been a believer since 2003. And so, I was saved, back then. And prior to that, like, I grew up in the church, grew up Presbyterian, like always having to wear the, khakis and the button-up shirt, to look the part. And so, like, I always knew about God. And I always thought I was close to him, but it wasn't really like until I got to like high school years that was really just started to be challenged by like cultural pressures, social pressures, things like that. And I just really wanted to explore that. I started pretty early, like getting into my dad's liquor cabinet. And I would even like steal bottles from there and take them over to my friend's house. And then that led to like smoking weed. And before I knew it, I was really like kind of entrenched in that lifestyle, like really early on. And gosh, yeah, that just led to, being promiscuous, and it led to just always partying with my friends. And then in like 2003, man, I had this like crazy, like Saul on the road to Damascus type situation where, I was living with a friend. So it had gotten so bad to where like I was living with a friend who was dealing weed out of our apartment. And I remember like at this time, I was like taking college classes, and I was also working at like FedEx, but I didn't have a bank account. And I would put like my money in my Bible next to my nightstand in the apartment. And so our apartment, long story short, like got broken into, and my money was gone out of my Bible. And I had this like crazy aha moment where the Holy Spirit just like illuminated the fact that I was using the Bible to save my money, but I wasn't using the Bible to save me. And it was crazy. Like all of a sudden, like my desires had changed. I started going to like the parties that I normally showed up to, like smoking weed, joints, all the things. I was showing up sober, and they were like, "What has happened to you?" I was like, I can't explain it. Like Jesus came into my heart, and I don't want to do these things anymore. I want to follow him. And they were like, "Hit the blunt, preacher boy," like just like mocking me. And so from there, I just basically like started going to church, found like a whole new community of believers to hang out with. And I had quit doing like basically all of those things. And my journey, I started going to like First Baptist Euless for a little while, and then I moved over to Fellowship Church, and
which is a
got
bigger church
baptized.
in the Dallas Fort
Right.
Worth area,
Yeah.
where JP
In
lives.
Grapevine. Yeah. And so, from there, one of my friends, told me about this Matt Chandler guy. And this was probably like 06, 05, 06, somewhere around there. And I had
And
been
how old are
listening.
you around this time?
I was 21.
Okay.
So when I got saved, I was 20. And then around the time, like I heard, about Matt and the Village, I think I was like 22, 23, somewhere around there. And that was something where I was like, man, I had never heard the gospel preached like this. And why is this pastor yelling at me? But I loved it. It was like gritty. It was awesome. Yeah, kind of a tangent here and a rabbit hole, but that's how I funny enough, I got involved with this home group, started going to the Village, got involved with this home group. I was living in Grapevine, Texas at the time. And I hadn't been doing literally any of those things like drinking alcohol, smoking, anything like that. And I met this group of guys that I remember like they were doing a Bible study at the Tap in Grapevine, like at a bar. And I was like, oh, okay. So like I don't have to be like legalistic with this stuff. I can still enjoy beer and still be a believer. Like this is great. And so I just started to kind of like readopt alcohol into my life. And I didn't see it as, an obstacle. I didn't see it as any of that. And so it became like a permanent fixture after that point again, because then I became really like an enthusiast for like IPAs and whiskeys and things like that. And I just carried it along to every single aspect of my life.
Can we pause there for a second?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I think, I bring this up in my book as well, right? That there was this culture, and I'll not to get too wonky on people, but there's kind of this movement called the Young Restless Reformed, right? And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Like you were raised Presbyterian, right? Kind of Reformed theology. And in a sense, it was like, hey, we were raised so legalistic. And we were told like this stuff is the devil's water and you can't touch it at all. But oh wait, all of a sudden there was this realization like, no, the Bible doesn't say that, which it doesn't, right? And then yet it seems to me like the pendulum kind of swung. Yeah. And I know that in my own life, while like I used that kind of cultural moment within the church where it was like, beer and Bible, pints with Lewis, like kind of like all this stuff to then like, and I'm not blaming that, like, cause that group of people, there was a lot of them that could do it.
Oh yeah.
Well, right. Like they wouldn't get drunk. And so I'm not saying, oh my gosh, how dare they? Right. But I can also see that how in my own story that was used as in a sense, an entryway, right, into incorporating beer and alcohol into every aspect of your life. So is that the same for you, or how do you kind of
100%. So for me, like it wasn't because of the Village Church or because of that group of friends. It was because in my spirit, like I lacked self-control. Right. And when it came to freedoms, I abused those freedoms. That's what I had a history of. And then when I saw that I had like a really good excuse to not be legalistic, that's where it started to, take a foothold in my life. It was because of my own sin and my own heart.
Yes.
And that not being dealt with. Like those are very like fine things, like to have a beer and enjoy it. Like that's a gift of the Lord, like great. But I was never one that could enjoy it responsibly. I was never one that could manage it, and I just never wanted to like accept the fact that that was the case for me. Because there was always times where like, man, I would be hanging out with my friends and they would be done at like 2 or maybe 3 most, right? And then I would be the one who would say, "Come on, let's have another. Come
Yeah.
on." I would be the one doing that, not necessarily them. And so, yeah, it was something in my heart where I took advantage and abused those freedoms, like, really early on, and I didn't see any reason why, like, I couldn't be a Christian and also, like, enjoy alcohol the way I did. But I also didn't have any, like, mentors around me at the time. Like, I wasn't necessarily seeking out discipleship and those types of things, right? So I didn't have anybody speaking truth into my life. It was all just like kind of peers, newer believers, like that sort of thing. And so yeah, that now it's like looking back, if somebody was able to like say, "Hey buddy," you know,
Yeah.
I think it would have been helpful, but that's on me too, right? That's not on anybody else.
Okay, so you're in this period where now alcohol kind of starts being incorporated into
Yeah.
almost every aspect of life. So take us from there.
Yeah, so fast forward from there, like that's all kind of college time, hanging out with these guys. And then I moved to Dallas, and that's where I met my wife. So we met in like 2000, late 2009, early 2010. She was going to the Dallas campus at the Village, which is where I ended up since I moved out to Dallas. And so we dated for a while. She also loved kind of the partying lifestyle. So we were like really great in that department. We were drinking buddies. We loved to hang out, have wine or beer together, enjoy ourselves with our friends. We just really like that was another permanent fixture kind of in our
Hmm.
lives. Yeah, and so we ended up getting married in 2012. Um, and we got married. Mason, actually, the guy that introduced us was the guy
That's
that
right.
married us.
Mutual
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, got married in 2012, moved out to San Diego in 2013 for my job, so, in the whole recruiting and sales world, and so I had an opportunity out there, and so we lived out there for 2 years, and during that time, we had our first child, Lachlan, and she'll be turning 11 here in, like, a week. But,
Wow.
yeah, so had Lachlan out there and then, found out that Ashley was pregnant with our second, Benson, and so we decided to, in, like, late 2015, move back to Texas, back to the DFW area, and then from there rejoined the Village. Yeah, and that's kinda where, things started to take a little bit of a turn for me. I was enjoying alcohol on a regular basis, and then in 2016, I had to leave the job that, like, I really enjoyed and take a job that I really didn't want to in order to get back here, and so I started to notice, ramping up the alcohol a little bit more in order to cope and deal with, like, those types of frustrations.
Yeah.
Um, and so it certainly wasn't to the point that it got to in, like, 2020, but, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but it was definitely becoming, like, an every night thing,
Yeah.
to where I was, drinking, like, 2 or 3 beers every single night, and then it would just kinda consistently grow from there. Um, and having 2 kids, moving into, an apartment, moving across country, like, there's a lot of stressors there, and I really didn't know how to deal with those stressors, like, in a healthy way, and I certainly wasn't, like, leaning on the Lord in any of that. And
Even
so I
though, and I want to make this clear, like even though you're a Christian, even though you're attending a great Bible believing church,
Right.
that is, and this is the one thing that I talk about too. Is like I was drawn to Matt Chandler's preaching as well. He was in your
Yeah.
face. He was calling
Yeah.
out sin, and it's like,
Yeah.
and I think what I want, and I harp on this in so many episodes and in the book is like there are parts of yourself that drawn to that, attracted to that. Maybe even, it wasn't my case, but maybe even that are dealing with some sin issues in
Yeah.
your life. And yet we have those kind of areas that we wall off, and we have this cognitive dissonance that we say, I'm improving and doing stuff in this area, but not this area. I'm not giving that over to the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always been one of my biggest battles, is that, like, on the outside, I'll, make it seem like everything's great, say, how you're doing? Yeah, I'm great, good. But then on the inside, there's something, like, looking back, there was always something there that I was like, yeah, I mean, he can have these aspects. Like, I would compartmentalize and say,
Yes.
no, he's absolutely not taking this, because how can I enjoy life, or how can I deal with these stresses, like, without that? And I didn't think enough of who Jesus is to, like, ever give that to him.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so I just kept slowly but surely, like, never intending to, or, like, nobody ever, in my opinion, right? Like, I wasn't going out and partying anymore, right?
Yeah.
I was just enjoying a little bit more, because now I've built up a tolerance. And so, yeah, I'm going to make sure that I always have enough there, just in case something comes up, or just in case I want to celebrate something, whatever the case, just in case,
Yeah.
And so
Just
I
in
just always,
case, here's a case.
right, just in case, there's always a case. And so that was really the story of that time frame. And then
What's your wife's drinking like in that period?
she was never a super heavy drinker. Like, I gradually got to be heavier and heavier with my drinking. But she would always just, like, really enjoy, like, the 2 glasses of wine a night. And that was enough for her. Like, she hated the feeling of ever being drunk. Like, she had gotten drunk a few times, like, drunk, and she, like, swore that off. Like, don't want to feel that way, not going to push the limit. So she really was just there with me, although, like, she would never, quote unquote, go hard.
Yeah.
She would just use it to take the edge off. But I don't have that personality, and I, like, if I start to feel that buzz, like, I want to keep that going at any cost. I don't care.
100%. My wife and I had a conversation the other day as we continue to talk through this and work through this and all this kind of stuff. And I think, in her mind, what she has still tried to wrap herself around, and I don't think she ever will.
Yeah.
Is she's like, she goes, I cannot understand the mentality of, like for me, why would you drink unless you can feel buzzed? Like, I just don't, like, I still don't get it, right? Like, my sinful nature is like, I never want just one. I never want just two, because as soon as I start feeling that buzz, I'm like, this is good. Yeah. I need more of this right now, as soon as possible. Right.
Right.
And my wife is like, I truly don't understand how you can drink just one. Like, for the taste, I don't, like, to me, there's always a feeling attached with it. Right. And my wife is like, I don't understand you. She's like, yeah, I can drink one drink and, like, that's it. And I'm like, yeah, I can't. Yeah. So just like you, as soon as you start feeling it, I'm like, I need more of this right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I often, like, would joke with my recovery guys that, like, more of, like, a torture or a sentence to me would be being allowed to have one beer for the rest of my life, like, a day.
Yeah, like, that's a great point.
I was like, no, no, that is awful. That is torture.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
rather just never touch it again than be allowed to have one a day.
Yep.
Like that.
Yep.
I could never do that. Could never do that.
Okay, so this is, you're kind of starting to get into potentially 2020 territory. So take us to that ramp up in that period. So you're drinking, it has increased. You're drinking more consistently. It's 2, 3, maybe 4. You're building up a tolerance, and then what happens in 2020? We'll be right back after this.
Yeah, I think a lot it hinges upon like the career path. So
Yeah.
I finally in 2000 like late 2016 found another career or another job that like I really was excited about. And now instead of commuting in all the time, I was working for a company that was based in California and I was working from home and I could go out and do all my sales calls, do all those things, right, to try to build up clientele, like the business development side of things. And so that gave me a ton of time and freedom that was really unchecked, right? And
Yeah.
so as I had that freedom to just work from home, have my own schedule, like do those things. Also, a boss, the CEO of the company, was like, man, he was a whiskey aficionado. Like, he was always like, he would come into town and he would get like $250 shots of Pappy. Like, he was
Wow.
that guy where he didn't care. And he even like encouraged, like, hey, take a couple shots, make some sales calls, it'll loosen you up. And so I really got into the mode of like, oh, okay, I can couple this with work now, right? Instead of having to worry like, hey, I have a governor on this with my other job, right? To where I
Yeah.
have to show up, I can't be hungover, like I got to be sharp, I'm in front of other colleagues, all the things. And so I kind of had that naturally built in to going into the office on a regular basis to now having all of this freedom again to abuse, not knowing how to manage alcohol or any of that stuff. And so that led to me like going further with it, going deeper down the hole. And so in 2020, fast forward to that time frame, everything was going well at the job. 2020 hit, and I'm doing staffing and recruiting. So all these businesses that we depend on for our revenue start just shutting down. And it's like, oh no, um, I might I might actually lose my job because like nobody's going into work. And
Yeah.
luckily they kind of pivoted on the business plan and started like, putting medical assistants to work, doing temperature checks and all sorts of things. So then we ended up doing really great, pivoting the business model a little bit. But then like that led to like, well, you can't go anywhere. You can't go out and do office visits, client meetings. You can't do any of that stuff. So now, like, you're just doing everything at home and you really, nobody can go do anything. Nobody can go anywhere. And so, man, that is where the bottom just dropped out for me. Cause, after I did like my normal sales stuff and, my day to day routine, it was just, what do? You drink. What do you do? Oh man, the world's falling apart. You drink. And
Yep.
so me and my wife, like I would even say that Ashley, started ramping up her drinking too, because everybody's like, what are we going to die? Like what's happening here? Like we
You
can't
can't
go
go
anywhere.
anywhere. You're just sitting at home. Yeah.
Right. So and so nobody had ever dealt with that before. And that's really where I started going from like just being kind of, again, just like a connoisseur of like IPAs and whiskeys to then like, man, I'm drinking a lot and like I'm getting really full off this beer. Like, I don't want to do that. So then I like moved over to like vodka, right? It was a lighter but stronger drink that I could somewhat kind of conceal, right? Like you can
Mm,
pour vodka in something and, unless somebody gets like really close to you, like nobody's really going to know. And I had already kind of figured out how to deal with the tolerance side and how to like just be normal on or a functional alcoholic on a regular basis. And then in 2021, I started to develop like this throat issue where because I was drinking so much vodka, it was eroding my esophagus. And so
wow.
it started to become difficult to swallow, like on a regular basis.
So
And
so how much were you drinking a day at this point?
this had gotten to the point to where I was like easily 10 to 15 drinks in a day. just throughout the day.
Would you
And so,
start all throughout the day? Would you start in the morning? What did that look like?
yeah. Yeah. So this is where like morning drinking really started because I would wake up with a hangover and I didn't want to pay the hangover debt. And so I would just start
Mm.
accumulating more of that hangover debt every single day, which then led me to like, oh, if I'm going to have to be talking with people, talking with clients, doing all those things on a regular basis, like I need to be back to the point to where I'm functional. And so, alcohol would get me to the point to where like I wasn't feeling that jittery, my brain's going to tear apart type feeling that I would feel with hangovers. And so I would just kind of slowly have like, I put 2 shots in my drink and I would have that and I'd start to feel the, okay, I can, I can breathe again. I feel like my heart's
Yeah.
beating out of my chest. Like, okay, cool. And then I would have 2 more and then 2 more, throughout the day. And then all of a sudden, like 8 in, I would start to feel kind of like the, woo, okay, like this is
Yeah.
a good day. And because of my tolerance, like I would feel normal, but to a normal person, that's drunk.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yes.
I'm like, operating on like being drunk all the time at this point. And then my wife starts to like in late 2021, she starts to feel convicted about our drinking. And so she's like, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this to our kids. I'm not going to have them growing up with numb parents, right?
Mm.
And so she feels convicted by the Spirit and she just stops. I tried to like stop with her for a little bit. And again, it was just a little bit. It was a couple
How
of
long
weeks.
was a little bit?
A couple of weeks. Yeah. I was to the point to where I was like, okay, I'm going to like face this hangover debt. I'm going to do it. And so at that point, like it was difficult to go 2 weeks. It was difficult the first couple of days because I was like really jittery, feeling the withdrawals, like anxious, just irritable, all the things. But then I got to like, the first week, I was like, okay, this isn't bad, but I missed it. I like really missed it. Especially like
Yes.
once you get past
Yep.
the hangover debt, then you're like, oh, I feel okay again. Like
Yeah. You're like,
time
I'm
to
fine.
celebrate. Yeah, I missed
Yep.
this. Like I won't get
How
back
did
to
you
that spot.
convince yourself after those 2 weeks? How did you justify starting to drink again?
Because I never fully was committed to not drinking. I was just like, well, I'll take a break just to see how I feel. And because of my addictive personality, I was ready to have it again. And then it was like the holidays too, around this time frame, because she stopped in November of 2021. And so like Thanksgiving comes up and then Christmas. I think I was sober for that Thanksgiving, but then like Christmas and everything. And it's like, no. I can't do Christmas without alcohol.
Yeah.
Like I can't do all of these family events without, being lubricated, like I need to like have that social elixir in order to do these things. And so yeah, for me, I started drinking again. And then
Was your wife starting to say anything about your drinking at this point?
not yet.
Okay.
So I think that she was experiencing like a renewal. And so she was just like enjoying that. And I mean, the JP she knew was just always a drinking JP. So she wasn't like, I wasn't doing anything, like I wasn't being belligerent with her. I was handling my responsibilities at work, still somewhat engaging with the kids. It wasn't like this was something that, it was like neglect or anything like that.
Had you started driving drunk at this point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, drinking all day, all the time. Yeah, it's just, that was definitely one of the things where going through recovery and going through steps, I was just torn up about because I'd given no thought to the fact that like, yeah, I've had these drinks and I am driving my kids in reality
Mhm.
and my wife.
Yeah.
Um, just you just don't care because it's just again such an idol. It's something that you're like, it
And
has
it's
to
that
be a
cognitive dissonance. You're able to separate it in some weird way. You're able to justify it. I
right,
mean, it's like the conversations I had with myself about like, what is 0.08, right?
right,
Like I
right,
remember having those conversations. Like, what is point? Some guy came up with that 0.08 is drunk. Well, they don't know me, right?
right,
They don't know my
right,
tolerance. They don't
right.
know how I grew up. They don't know how I'm able to hold. Some guy once accused me when I first started talking about this. He's like, John, you just couldn't hold your liquor. I'm like, no, sir. The problem was I could hold my liquor. I could hold it
Yeah,
really well, and you would
yeah,
never know it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I would be schmasty faced, and you wouldn't know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Although what's funny about that is I used to think like, man, there's no way anybody knows because like I'm acting totally normal. And I look at videos from back then and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, they knew. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way they didn't know. I just convinced myself that there's no way they didn't know or that there's no way
Yeah.
they knew that I was actually drunk, you know.
Yeah, I remember
But
showing up drunk to my daughter's like Christmas program at school, and my wife is like
yeah,
elbowing me because I'm like singing the Christmas songs loud, and I'm like, people are just gonna think I'm jolly and jovial, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
she's like, you are starting to make a scene.
Yeah.
And yet we convince ourselves, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah. There
So
they
COVID,
need to
okay,
be
so COVID then really ramps it up.
COVID ramps it
Your
up.
wife takes a break, you take a break, but then you start again.
Right, start again. And then this time it gets like way worse. Because now I'm kind of resentful. I lost my drinking buddy. She's doing great. She's like now taking the role of leading and mentoring our kids, reading the Bible, doing all of these like fruitful things with them. And man, I'm doing so I feel like prideful in that like I'm doing great at my job. Things are working really well, making good income. Yeah, this is going really well. So I decide to plan like this whole family vacation to go back to San Diego in 2022. Right. And um I have a different agenda than she does on this trip. She wants to go Disneyland and she wants to do all the fun activities with the kids. I want to go see my drinking buddies from San Diego,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I want to see all my friends that I used to cut it up with. And yeah, so there's this time where the throat issue is like getting worse. So I'm like pouring more vodka into myself to numb that. And
Did you have an idea that it was from drinking so much, or you just like, man, this got this weird like
I
persistent
did.
sore
I
throat?
did. Yeah. And I was just completely stubborn. I actually think I
Uh,
went to an ENT and they were like, what are your habits? And I told them I was like, oh, I guess I drink LaCroix too much. Like the carbonation. And I mean, the eye rolls, right? Like, really? Really?
yeah.
LaCroix? No. Um, and so I ended up going to the hospital in the middle of the night in San Diego because my throat was so bad that I couldn't even swallow.
Wow.
And so like that already pretty much put a big damper on the trip, right? And I I mean I think I had like a sore throat from going to Disneyland, but like it had gotten like it had exasperated. It was bad. So I was terrified because I couldn't swallow. I was like, I gotta go to the hospital. This is awful. And so yeah, trip basically ruined because of that. But after I get out of the hospital, um, they're like, yeah, I guess it's a sore throat or whatever. They didn't really know like what was really going on. So they released me and they gave me like some pills, which is bad, to like calm it down and help with the pain. And so the next day we end up going to the beach, Coronado Beach, and I take those pills and then I also douse it with a bunch of alcohol. And then I end up browning out, as you will, not remembering any of it and telling my wife, that because I couldn't go visit my buddies at the bar, that like she was a B, like called her that.
Mm.
Um, and I still like to this day am like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like that was not me, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
remember saying that to you. And that was it. It was like, man, I had broken her trust. I ruined the trip. She's sober. I'm not. I'm completely opposite of that. I have these issues with my throat. And so that just caused a great divide for us that just led to me like essentially hiding alcohol from her. Before it was like she saw it, and then I just basically tried to quit again. Didn't really succeed at that, and decided to hide the alcohol in my backpack now. I was gonna,
Mm.
I'd go to Goody Goody Liquor. First, I'd go to like the gas station and, you know, pay for the gas, but like also be able to like pull some out,
Yep.
so that I could go to the gas station. So I'd bake in those costs, go to Goody Goody, and I'd buy like the cheap vodka and I put it in my backpack. And then this is like where the throat stuff really started to get bad, because now I couldn't go more than like 5 minutes without having something to lubricate my throat. So I'm like using Altoids, using gum. I even resorted to putting toothpaste in a contact case so that at points during the day I could pull out the contact case, take a little bit of the toothpaste, and lubricate my throat.
Wow.
And then it got even worse than that, to where I literally couldn't sleep because it felt like somebody had like this on my throat at night.
Wow.
And so all of this is happening to me physically, and spiritually I'm just in a really dark place. And then my wife tells me, hey, I was reading the Bible with Lachlan, our oldest daughter, and she said that she wants to accept Jesus, and she accepted Jesus. And now she wants you to baptize her. And I was like, oh no, like I'm a mess.
Mm.
I'm an absolute
Mm.
mess. I can't talk. I can barely sleep. I have anxiety through the roof. And now my daughter wants me to get up in front of the congregation and baptize her, And so I start freaking out. I start developing a plan. Like, okay, by this day, I need to back it down to this many drinks. And I had started Googling stuff about like dependence on alcohol, and it's terrifying. It's like, man, if you drink this many, then like don't try to do it on your own. Like you need to go to a
Yeah.
rehab or detox facility because you could die. And so I'm
And
like,
you're looking at that number and you're like, I'm way
Man.
past that number, baby.
yeah, long ago, I was at like 20, 25
Yeah.
drinks at this point. And so I'm terrified. I'm like, if I raise the white flag on this, I'm never going to be able to drink again. It's going to have to be gone. Like, I don't want to do that. And I just kept begging the Lord. I was like, please, God, why? Like, and I was coming from a place of being resentful towards him. Like, why did you let this happen, Lord? Why did you let this happen? Like, I'm a believer. How are you going to let me go through this? Like, this is awful. You must have lied, right? Like, just all of those things. And so, yeah, developing a plan for her baptism on April 30th, I believe it was, of 2023. And I couldn't do it. I failed at my plan. This was a Saturday before like the Sunday service. And then we found out that it got canceled. Rescheduled. The baptism got rescheduled. Right. And I was like, I'm on the hook. Oh my goodness, I have more time. And the Holy Spirit hit me at that point. It was, why are you excited about not baptizing your daughter? Like,
wow.
How, like, ridiculous. And
Wow.
I think it was that day that, like, he got my attention, and and I was so like physically in pain and so spiritually in pain that I was excited about not baptizing my daughter, that was enough. That was my point of desperation, my gift of desperation. That was all of it. My wife and I were literally just roommates at this point. And I was drunk on that day, and I just came into the living room and I looked at my wife and I was like, I need help. She was like, "What are you talking
Mm.
about?" I was like, "I am fully dependent on alcohol now and I'm scared and I can't do this alone. Like, I need help." And she's like, "What do you mean you're fully dependent?" I was like, "I've been hiding it in my backpack in my office for like years or 2 years or
Wow.
whatever it was." And she just lost it. She was like, "Are you serious?" And she told me, full transparency, that she was ready to take the kids and go to where her parents live in Amarillo and leave me because she thought it was hopeless. And she actually, like, in Matt's podcast, said, like, she had just literally, she kind of hoped that the Lord would take me because it was so
Yeah.
hopeless.
What was she what was so if she didn't realize it was necessarily the drinking, what did she think at that point, that you had just kind of checked out?
Yeah. So she knew that, like, I was still drinking because I would have the acceptable amount in front of her. So
Right.
I
Same.
would,
Same. Yep.
right. I would have whatever was in the fridge. When she wasn't looking, I'd replace it to
Yep.
make sure that that was always, so it didn't look like I was going crazy. So I had all sorts of mechanisms of deception in place, to make it seem like, yeah, I'm just having my normal amount, right? But relationship wise, like, I had fully just checked out. Like, we
Yeah.
were not hanging out together. She was doing all the activities with the kids. I was really short with her about pretty much everything because I really thought that she was nagging because she would just ask me to do things. And I would see it as like, she's suspicious. She's like trying to, get me. She's
Yes.
nagging, you know, all of those things. And so it just caused a real divide between us. And I think she just was like, she resolved in her heart, like, I'm not going to be his mother. I'm not going to nag him. I'm just going to let it be. And I'm just going to pray. And that's what she did for like the last several months, is she just, all right, wherever this goes, like, I can't say anything to him without him snapping at me or giving me pushback in a rude way. Right? He just thinks that I'm trying to tell him what to do all the time. Like, I'm just going to take a step back and I'm going to give it to the Lord. And yeah, that's where she was just like, I'm losing hope here. I don't know what, I can't do anything with him. He's got to make the choice. Right? And so, yeah, that's where the Lord stepped in. And then,
It's funny because that's exactly where my wife was. Right. She's like, I'm
yeah,
not your babysitter. I'm not your
yeah,
mom. I'm
yep,
not like, and I think, and I think I think when you and I talked on the phone prior to this, I think there's an episode that I want to do with the wives, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I think, you know, there maybe even might be some people listening to this who are like, what do you do as a family member? And I get that question a lot. And in
yeah,
fact, I was going to write a chapter on that in the book, and then I took it out because I'm like, I don't think there's a one size fits all, right?
right,
Some people might respond to a type of quote unquote intervention. But some people like me and like you, like that would be the worst thing to do, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so it was my wife, your wife just had to say, I'm giving it to the Lord, right? And
yeah,
I think everyone in a sense has to give it to the Lord, right? But
right,
what that looked like practically with your wife and my wife is we just have to let them give themselves over, right?
yeah,
Like give themselves over to it. And Holy Spirit, you're just going to have to work. And so for
yeah,
me, it was on a beach in Miami. And for you, it was, you know, the baptism that didn't happen,
yeah.
right? So take us to what happened from that point.
Yeah. So essentially, after I confessed to all of that, um, she she just kind of gave me like a ultimatum, really.
Hmm.
she said, prove it, you know, and because I had done it numerous times, I'd said like, oh, I can stop drinking. And then I'd go back to it. Oh, I can stop drinking, go back to it. And because, I had gone so far with it, like, looking back, you know, it was the whole don't raise the white flag. Like that was the enemy, telling me like not to get help
Yeah.
because, you know, you're ever going to have it. But then, you're never going to have it again. But then I was like, man, like what if life is so much better without it? Um, Also, like I care about my family and I want to be restored. I want to be healed. I want to put in the work. And so yeah, I went to the hospital. They gave me some
Like
medicine
that night or the next day or what?
the next day. I tried to go without it and I couldn't. I had the shakes so bad. And
Mm.
I even went and got a 6-pack after I confessed because I was like, I'm going to die. Like it was
Yeah.
so bad. The withdrawals were so bad that I could not function. So I had to like appease it. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, after that, it was May 1st that I was like, I'm going to the hospital. No more of this. I got to have more alcohol to help get me off of alcohol. That makes no sense. So I went to the hospital. They gave me alcohol, you know, curb your craving type medicine. I forgot what it's called. They calmed my blood pressure down. It was 200 over something. I'm also a type 1
Wow.
diabetic. I've been a type 1 diabetic for 33 years. And so my blood sugar was through the roof, blood pressure through the roof. Yeah, just everything was out of whack. It was terrible, but they got me on the road to healing. And then I went to recovery that Wednesday for the first time, broke down.
What was that like to I want to walk people through that because I think there's probably a lot of whether you have a recovery ministry at your church like you and I do.
Yeah.
I go to Citizens Church, which is a plant of the mothership, the village. But or maybe someone's walking into a meeting. What was it like? Did you feel defeated? Did you feel excited? Did you feel like, oh my gosh, I hope no one sees me, but I know I have to do this? What was it like walking into that first recovery meeting?
I felt nervous. I didn't know what to expect. Like because I was so far away from accountability and walking in community and all of those things, like I just was like, I don't even know what the format's going to be like. I don't know. You know, I had a friend that like offered to join me and he did, and I was thankful for that, right? But yeah, it was amazing because we walked into the sanctuary and they just started worshiping. And so it was just a worship set, which was amazing. And then it was a message. It was kind of like a mini Sunday service, right? So I
Right.
was like, okay, what? This is awesome. And then at the end of that 1 hour, like mini service, they just said, hey, if you're new, go to this room over in Kids Village and they'll chat with you about like what it looks like here. And so we went into this little orientation room and there was like, 6 or 7 people with me. And they just gave a rundown of what it looks like. Hey, this is what Wednesdays look like. It's always going to be this format. And then you break out into like separate rooms with separate like categories, right? So you have your chemical addiction or non-chemical addiction or marriage or this or that. And so they had all of these different categories for different types of recovery ministries. And so on the second one, ended up going to room 12 with all of the chem guys. And then from there, man, it was just people talking about like me and you right here. It
Yeah.
was talking about what they were stuck in, talking about how the Lord met them there, while we were yet sinners. And then just like the hope that came out of it, because you got guys like Danny Spencer, who was on Matt's podcast too, who had been sober for 26 years, been at the Village since 1999. Like he thought that he was one of those guys that could never be accepted into the body of believers because of what he had done. Like the Lord was mad at him. And now this dude is telling his story, and he's talking about how drinking was everything. The Lord redeemed him. Now he gets to share that with other people who have the same problems. And it just gives you this hope. And then it gives you this belonging of like, okay, I'm not the only one here, right? Like,
how did you like when it first came to you at that first meet? Like when it kind of came, did you say like, "Hey, I'm JP," and did you, like very practically, you say like, "I'm an alcoholic. I have a drinking problem." Like, what did you say, and how was that? We'll be right back after this.
Yeah, so I had gone to an AA meeting like a couple days prior, and I did that for the first time and was like, this is weird. I just was not a huge fan of it because it was like, my name's JP, I'm an alcoholic, and I was like, but I don't want to be identified as that. And then like recovery was just like, hey, the leader of that group would just say, hey, you're new here. Like, tell us why you're here. And I was out with it because I really, from that point, just started thinking like the more people that know, like the bigger the safety net for me, the bigger the buffer, right? And so I was like, yeah, I'll let them know. And then I just told them my story, and they were like, man, praise God for you. So thankful you're here. Like they couldn't encourage me more. And they're like, just keep pursuing him because he's certainly going to keep pursuing you. And just take it day by day, right? Just don't drink tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And get in the word and ask the Lord to like reveal things about himself. And so it was just really cool to be in there with like fellow believers who had gone through it, and they could guide you, and they were older. And it was like that mentorship that I was telling you I was missing. It was like having these older men be able to talk to me about the pitfalls to look out for. It was amazing. And like, you're not going to be perfect. So like lean on the Lord for all of that. Like, don't beat yourself up. Like, just keep pursuing the Lord. Like, the enemy is going to take shame and going to hold you in captivity with shame. So like, just know that the Lord loves you, and that's what's going to keep you going.
Yeah.
It's not you doing good or you doing bad, because both of those can be honestly twisted by the enemy too. Right?
Yeah.
You start doing good, then you think it's all you. You do bad, then you're just like, I'm a failure. I suck. But if you're constantly looking to the Lord, well, he doesn't change, and so
that's one of the reasons too why I'm so passionate about I'm okay, right? And I'm supportive, if you will, of programs, right? And technically you and I are part of a recovery program at our churches, right? So I'm not against programs, right?
Right.
But if you make it only about the program, you then become to rely on, well, guess what? I can do it. I've done it, right? It becomes about you. It becomes about you working the program. It becomes about you working the steps. It becomes about what you can do, right?
Right.
And I think what I've realized and what you've realized is like, listen, if I could do it on my own, like if it was just about working steps, if it was just about working a program, I would have stopped drinking a long time ago, right?
Right. Right.
And for you and for me, I think the Lord met us in the most unlikely places, right?
Yeah.
Like he met you as you're celebrating not baptizing your child. He met me drunk in the ocean in the wee hours of the morning in Miami. Like why all of a sudden is that where the Holy Spirit broke through? I don't know, but that's just what he decided to do, right? So again, not against programs. You and I are technically a part of one. But in the end, it's about Jesus, right? And those can support and help, and he can use those. But let's not make it just about the program and about how many meetings you can go to a day, a week, or 90 and 90.
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly what you said. Like those things are tools and they're great, but like the goal here is more of Jesus, and that's what then allows you to walk in his purpose for you, right? It's not like what we do and us, taking the wheel. It's like, man, the Lord has repurposed my life in such a way to where sobriety was just the first step. Like,
Yes.
now he's got me on a path towards missions. I've gone on short-term trips with my family, like Egypt and Berlin, and like he's got me looking at leading more and doing more. And I'm like, this was the reason. It wasn't to
Mm.
just be sober. It's to now go, because 2 Corinthians 5:17-21 tells us that we're a new creation. And as a new creation, we're now ambassadors of the message of reconciliation. So if I'm following that in Matthew 28:19, like, then I'm now free to go tell,
Yeah.
right? Instead of just being like, yeah, programs are great. They're great tools, and they get you to a point to where now you're following the Lord, and now you're telling other people about what he did, so that those people can then multiply, make disciples, baptize them, all the things. Like, that's the goal.
So, okay, you start going to recovery at your
Yeah.
church. When did things, in a sense, like, what was that first month, 3 months, year? Like, what
Yeah.
was that like? And when did you really start to feel like, okay, I I think this sobriety thing is going to take this time?
Yeah. So the first, I would say, like 3 to 6 months was really just following the program. It was, I know I need to do this. I know this is helping. This is also really hard. But yeah, I need to like put in the work towards getting this out of the way. Like, I just need to be obedient to that. I need to be faithful to this, because there's a huge vacuum when that thing gets pulled out. And that can be filled in a number of ways. But
Yep.
like, I had a counselor who told me, like, if you can, I mean, don't neglect time with your family, but try to do everything you can that will get you more of Jesus. Like serving at the church,
Praise
right?
God.
Counseling like this, AA, recovery, all of the things, just service, going out and volunteering, doing things like that are going to orient you towards the Lord. And so that's what I just started doing. I just literally put my head down and I was like, I have to do this. This is helping. I do like feel like I'm, growing and building that spiritual muscle, if you will. And so, yeah, it wasn't until like 6 to like 9 month time frame where like the Lord just removed the obsession. Like, it took a while for me because I still fantasized about it in my mind.
Mhm.
I still fantasized about one day, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. And yeah, the Lord in that time frame, 6 to 9 months, I can't remember exactly when, but he gave me this thought of like, oh man, he is the goal. He is that joy. He is all of those things that I had alcohol on the throne of, right? Like, he's all those things. And then I really started to like believe that instead of just like doing all the things, missing alcohol. I really started to like feel his spirit in me say that like, whoa, he really is. I don't know if I've ever like felt that way to where, man, I just want more of him and that's enough, rather than like
Right?
him plus something, him plus something. And so I that's where like now my prayer is still very similar in that like, Lord, stay on that throne in my heart. Like get any of those things out of the way that are trying to take that throne, no matter like what they are, because they'll try all the time to take my affections away from you, like stir my affections for you, point me towards those things, like let your Holy Spirit empower that in me, right? Instead of me trying to empower that in me, but like you have to stay on the throne, because man, when you really feel the Holy Spirit in you and those fruits start to come out, you're like, I don't want anything to disrupt that. I don't want things to come between it. And I've like reading a book called Fighting Shadows, like talked about how we can put, like, it talks about the shadows like from an eclipse, perspective and how we can allow things to eclipse the light of the Lord shining on our lives. I'm like, I don't want any other things eclipsing the light of him in my life. And so now I'm seeing it as like, yeah.
What do you say to people who are listening to this who are Christians? Like, let's just even start there. They're Christians, right?
Yeah.
But like you and like me, I think if we would have heard ourselves 4 years ago, right, we would have been like, that is so foreign to me. This idea that Jesus isn't, yes, I grew up hearing that. Yes, whatever. But like when I want to drink, like that is so, like, I think there are people who are like, this, maybe that's for you uber spiritual people. I'm not an uber spiritual person. I just want my beer. I just want to relax. Like this, I don't see any world in where I can get to where you're at, JP or John. Like, what do you say to those people?
Yeah, that's a really tough place to be, honestly, is that like I was there. I would say trust that like the Lord wants all of you, and I would just like encourage those people to like pray that the Holy Spirit would reveal those things right in them, because there really is nothing that I can say here, right, that's going to cause the flick of the switch, right? And so I would just say that to those people who doubt, or to those people that think that there is nothing actually going on, like, man, take a chance on getting in the Word and like submitting and surrendering and just being open to like praying that the Lord would reveal any sin, any besetting sin that's going on that is hindering your relationship with him. Because even when you and I are in a place that we're in currently, like we should still be praying that prayer, right? Because we're never done.
Yes.
And so even when you have like experienced freedom from the big ones, you still, like the little ones are still there, right? And we still try to take the throne and allow them to take the throne and all the things when the little ones are there. And so it's all of it. It's all of life for all of life, right? And so we just have to constantly be leaning into the Lord, getting in the Word, because I mean, the Word reveals his character. And then we ask, and Philippians 4:6, like we supplicate, we beg, right? Don't be anxious in everything, but in prayer and thanksgiving and supplication, like make the request known. And so like we're to beg for him to help us.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say, because I don't think anybody could have told me, like it took me going through what I went through for the Lord to get my attention. And so with that being the situation, I would just pray that the Lord would reveal things.
You said that the Lord has removed the obsession. I would agree with that with myself as well.
Yeah.
The obsession specifically about alcohol. But, what I tell people is I still have a desire to escape, right? Like my ultimate addiction was to escapism. Now, there was a like I went through withdrawal, right? There was a physical aspect that took over, right? So I don't deny that. But what I'm saying is that at the deep root of why I was drinking, I didn't want to face stuff, right? And some of that goes back to childhood, right? Like I just, I wasn't a party drinker. I was an alone drinker. I just want to turn my mind off. I deserve this time alone. Everyone goes to bed. I just want to drink a little bit, right? Like I'm not doing anything.
Right.
It just, so I still have this desire to escape, right? When things get tough, when I'm facing uncertainty. So my question to you is, while the obsession is gone, where do you find, or do you still have that desire for escape? How do you fulfill that now? And how do you turn away and bring that to the Lord?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, still have the desire to relax or have fun, because I was a big fun guy, and so that will manifest itself in various ways now, which will be like, doing like it'll be a battle of like, oh, I committed to going to this like missions leadership class or doing this outreach training or things that I know through experience have gotten me more of the Lord and are very good things. Like I'll see it show up in those ways where it's like, hey man, I mean, this is volunteer. Like, do you have to go? Like you could just relax and watch a movie, right?
Yeah. Right.
And it's like littler things where it's like selfishness with my time now
Yeah.
is like a battle sometimes, right? But thankfully, like, man, now it's like I used to always wonder, like, man, what does it sound like for the Holy Spirit to be like prompting me or talking to me or whatever the case may be? And like now it's really recognizable versus it wasn't before. Now it's like those things that like I don't necessarily have to do, but I know will get me more of the Lord. It'll be like my flesh will say like, nah, you can take this one off or, whatever the case may be. And the Holy Spirit will remind me like how much he's done for me and how much I've gotten up more of him in those things. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go do it. And I'll just trust him in that, go do it. And then he shows up and I'm like, I want more of that. Yep. So, I think it, after the big thing is gone, it just like might just be morally neutral things that you could waste time on.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And just
absolutely
relaxing. And then you really think nothing of it, but you could spend more time praying. I could spend so much more time praying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'll do that. Or, I had my quiet time this morning. I'm good. Check that box.
Right.
So it's starting to like make the relationship a routine. That's a bent. And it's selfishness with my time sometimes, which that I have to battle against now.
So 2, maybe 3 questions as we start to wrap up here. First of all, how's your throat? Like, did it heal? Like, what was the result of all of that? As soon as you stopped drinking, did it kind of
fully
repair
healed?
Itself?
Yeah, fully healed. I every once in a while like will experience a little bit of dryness in my throat, but I'm like, that's probably normal. I don't know, but I don't experience it to where I can't sleep. I can have these conversations. Praise God. Like, fully went away and again, like have taken mission trips now to where, man, my anxiety before going on those was through the roof because I was like, oh, what if something flares up or being a type 1 diabetic or all the medical things, like, man, the Lord got me through it. And so it's given me so much more confidence in him, and praise God, he healed the throat issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did it take? And how has your relationship with your wife been restored? Because, you said it, like she was on the cusp of leaving, right?
Yeah.
She was hoping that the Lord would take you. That's low, right? That's a low point in your marriage. How did you find restoration? How are you continuing? Like, my wife and I are still in ongoing counseling, right? So I don't pretend that like we're nailed it,
Right.
But how have you found restoration? What does that look like?
A lot of prayer. And counseling really helped a ton. And it was really like 3 months after that she had the realization. She was like, man, the Lord has forgiven me for all of my sins, for all of my filth. Like, I can forgive my husband. And she saw that like I was now pursuing recovery. I was now pursuing the Lord. So like, man, it made me just break down. We were on our way to Amarillo, where her family lives. And she was like, you know what? I forgive you. And I want to work towards like full reconciliation. And now like, man, we've just experienced a really good season of us being on the same team, working together, pursuing the Lord. But like, not to go too far off base here, but like after getting sober, like I went through a whole nother big obstacle of, man, I got laid off from the job that I was with for forever. Right. And I was like so scared, didn't know what to do. And the Lord was like, hey, start this business. Like, you know what you're doing. You've been doing it for over 15 years. Start this. And like, we had to lean on the Lord, and it was so hard for us in our relationship because she's has her worries about me providing and starting from zero, building my own business. And like, we just both had to press into the Lord, trust the Lord, trust the Lord, trust the Lord. And it seemed like almost like that resentfulness almost kind of crept in again. Like, Lord, you got me out of alcohol only to then go through like being laid off and then like starting a job and not knowing where the next paycheck is going to come from. Like, that led to literally endurance, character, and hope, because now he showed up there too. So I'm like, what can't he do?
Yeah.
Like, he got me
Right.
out of alcoholism. He saved me there. He restored my marriage. He saved me there. He got me to the point to where I was able to trust him with career and all of that. And now, like, using that to like fund missions and fund other. So that being the goal, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, if I could just step back and look at what he has going on, like, why would I worry at all?
Right.
But it's crazy to see, but it's all been through like stretching, pulling, growing, like building more capacity and faith in him, and just being like, man, he's it. Like,
Yep.
if this fails tomorrow, I still got him, and that's more than enough. And I think that's what's really helped our marriage just really grow, is that like, I can look at her and say, hey, when you're worried, just know that like, I am pursuing the Lord has me, but I am not your God. Right. And you are not mine. And we can trust the Lord with our situation because he loves us both.
Yeah.
So
what's your final piece of advice for someone who's listening to this, who's like, JP, I'm you. I'm where you were in 2021.
Man, I would say that despite the way things look right now, like, there is absolute hope, and Jesus is so much better. And I know, like, you think you're losing your best friend, but you're gaining the ultimate friend in Jesus. Like, and that's like, again, just hard. It's hard to hear. It's hard to think, like, and they may think, and they may be, being lied to by the enemy and shame and all the things. Man, I can't confess this, but like, you would be surprised at what the Holy Spirit can do in people's hearts. Like, you think that you have to deal with all of this on your own. You don't. Like, he is the helper. And trust me when I say he helps. So don't think it's impossible. Don't think that nobody will understand. Reach out, confess, do the things, and trust that the Lord has you, right? Like, pursue recovery, right? Because there's so much more there. There's so much more fulfillment in the Lord than there was in this, as John Piper puts it, mud pies in the slums. Like, that is what we settle for when alcohol is on the throne, is mud pies in the slums. Like, the Lord is so much better. And so I would just say, like, it's not impossible. The Lord has you. The Lord loves you. While we were yet sinners, he died for us. Like, he loves us. And we can believe that. We can believe him.
Yeah. What I tell people is, I guarantee you that if you make this decision, you make this leap, if you follow the conviction of the Holy Spirit, you will get the best life possible. Not the easiest, but you will get the best life possible, right?
Yeah.
You had difficulties even after quitting drinking. Those 3-6 months out, like, that first little period after I stopped drinking, it sucked, guys. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, it was hard. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you took away my coping mechanism. You took away something that my body had become addicted to physically, right? Like, it's not easy, right? I'm not going to pretend. And while Jesus works miracles, and there are some people who maybe it's miraculous, like, great. Not my experience, not JP's experience, right?
Yeah.
But I can tell you that the best life is waiting for you on the other side of that. And
Amen.
I'm a testament to that, and JP is a testament to that as well. JP, thank you so much for your candor, your radical vulnerability, for opening up, for being honest, for just taking us on this journey with you. Really appreciate you, brother. Love you, man.
Yeah, I love you too, man. Thanks for the opportunity. And I mean, Revelation 12:11, right? We overcome the enemy, the blood of the lamb and the word of our testimony. So like as many people as we can share it with, like, let's go.
Absolutely. Thank you. Oh, I absolutely love when JP said, you think you're losing your best friend, but you're gaining the ultimate friend in Jesus. Listen, I was doing another podcast interview with someone, and I said, like, it the first bit of sobriety can suck, right? Like you know, and I said this on this one as well. Like your coping mechanism has been taken away, right? And I don't say that to discourage you. I really do say it to encourage you, because here's the reality, and this is what the prosperity gospel gets so wrong. I should say it's one of the many things that the prosperity gospel gets wrong and is so destructive. Is that the prosperity gospel teaches that, you know, if you're doing everything right, that you're going to experience it's just rainbows and butterflies and euphoria and blessings all the time. But what the gospel says is, in this world you will have trouble. So why I make a point to talk to you about what it was like and paint that picture, realistic picture of what it was like in the first months of sobriety, is because you will have trouble, right? Like, you are going to have to feel and experience and cope with the things you don't want to feel or experience or cope with, right? And so that can feel like losing a friend, because you are losing a friend. You are losing something that's been with you. But again, you're not getting the easiest or easier life as a result of giving up alcohol, but you truly are getting the better and best life possible. And I think JP's story is an example of that, right? And it's weird. I know it's weird. Like, you're listening to this and you're like, I can't imagine, like, you guys are saying stuff that sounds so uber spiritual and so spiritual. Like that just, I'm just not even attracted to that, right? And I would say, that's part of the blinders that the enemy has put on your eyes. That's part of what the sin nature has done to you as it takes over. But as you start practicing the presence of God, right? Practicing the presence of God, right? That's a great book. Is you will start, your affections will start to be changed. And I know that seems like it's so far off, but it will happen. I'm telling you, it will happen. That's why I talk about the 4 steps: abiding, finding your true identity, radical vulnerability, and obedience. It's how those affections are stirred and changed. Listen, I love you all. If you have any thoughts or comments or questions, go to christianalcoholic.com, christianalcoholic.com. There's a form that you can fill out. So many of you have, and I've loved talking to you, some of you as well. As always, please check out lifeaudio.com. Lifeaudio.com is the partner that makes this podcast possible. So grateful and so thankful for them. So grateful and thankful for JP. Love you all. We'll see you next time.